another episode of the When Life Happens podcast. I am your host, William Jackson, and I'm always ecstatic because we have another opportunity to live, learn, and grow together. And I'm excited because every time we take an intentional moment to invest in ourselves, we get better, we get stronger, we get wiser, and we are able to accomplish more than we could ever dream of. And today, I'm going to talk about something that really caught me by surprise. I was actually kind of shocked. Me and my family, we were driving down the highway, and I don't know if you have this sort of enamorment with wildlife or birds or anything of the sort, but my wife and I, and our son, we're very much, I am on the lesser end. My wife is on the higher end, but we are very much outdoors. We love nature. My wife is a flower child. She will literally stay outside all day as long as the weather permits. Me, bugs love me. And I mean, when I mean love, I mean they love, love, love me. As soon as I walk outside, it's almost like they sound the alarm. Bim, bim, ba-da-da. He's outside. Everybody converges on the target. And I just have that rare blood type that mosquitoes love. And it's one of those things that I love being outside, but after about the first 5 minutes of me smacking myself violently, trying to get rid of the bugs, my wife is like, okay, you know what? Let's just go. How about we just go back to the house, right? Or let's do something different. I literally have to lather up in bug spray when I go outside. I don't know how you swat bugs, but I'm a big guy and I do everything big. I am an extremist. So if I'm going to try to get a bug off of me, it's going to be pretty extreme. So if a mosquito is on me, if you hear a random slap, just know I'm trying to get the bug. We be sitting in a room and all of a sudden you just hear smacks coming out of nowhere. And I don't care where they are. I have to be a little bit more intentional, but if it lands on my forehead, I'm smacking my forehead, right? So we are very much lovers of nature. Nature doesn't love me as much. And then I get heat bumps when the temperature rises too high. I get them on my face and arms. But anyway, love being outside to a degree. But we are very much enamored with wildlife and things that are going on, especially animals. I'm an animal lover. I'm a dog whisperer. All dogs love me. Quick story. Me and my wife went to go get some food at a donut coffee shop, and we were sitting outside minding our own business. And this sweet elderly lady comes up with this some kind of doodle, labradoodle, golden doodle, schmoogadoodle, one of the doodles. And this dog literally just loses its mind trying to get to me. I didn't call the dog. I didn't whistle. I didn't whisper. I didn't even lock eyes with the dog. Dog saw me and literally started to yank her arm out of her socket to get over to me, to let me pet it. I'm a dog whisperer. Dogs love me. Animals love me. I feel like that I am very much a master of my element, and confidence that I exude makes me a suitable candidate to take on any animal in a dire situation. I fully believe that if I saw a bear, I could speak to the bear with full faith and confidence, and the bear would turn around and walk away. Now, there's a part of me that wants to try it just because I want to sort of see. But that's why we have wives, so that we don't go off on the deep end and do ridiculously crazy stuff. So thank you, baby, for keeping me alive. So I love the animals, and we are very much into nature and animals. And we were riding down the highway, and we saw these hawks flying in the air. And if you've ever seen a hawk fly, they flap their wings a few times, but for the most part, they are gliding. I love the gracefulness of a hawk. And there's some big birds. I remember one time we were walking in the park and we saw these two hawks just perched up on a tree, just having a good time. And, I tried to call out to them to see if they would respond. Unfortunately, they didn't because I don't speak Hawk. However, I was driving down the highway and we were riding. We saw this hawk and it was flying and it was so graceful. And then we were having a conversation and then we looked up a few minutes later and the hawk was rolling on the highway. And we had to swerve out of the way, because one, we don't want to hit a bird. Two, it's a big bird. So we swerve out of the way to avoid the hawk. And we're trying to figure out what happened, what took place here. How did this hawk just go from gliding in the air to literally rolling down the highway? And what we saw at an instant glance right before we saw the hawk rolling is that the hawk swooped down just a little too low. And there was an RV that was riding down the highway and the top of the RV clipped the hawk. And when it clipped it, I mean, it clipped it. And then the hawk hit the ground and it was rolling and it was sad. It was super sad because the feathers were flying everywhere and it just was bouncing down the highway. It's almost like when you watch those Western movies and that bushel, that comes across the scene when they do that. That bushel that comes, that one bushel. I never understand why it's just one, right? Like there's not more than one bushel in the whole town. It's just this one single bushel. However, I digress. The hawk is rolling down the highway. And so we're trying to figure out what made the hawk come down that low to be clipped by the RV. Maybe it saw something that it liked, or maybe it thought it could land on the RV because of the size of the structure. Maybe it was deceived by its distance. I'm not sure. But what happened, what we do know, is that the hawk came down a little too low and got clipped. And I don't know if it recovered. I don't know if anyone else had the motor skills to swerve out of the way. We're hoping and praying that there was a speedy recovery for, we're just going to say Harry the Hawk, or Henry, or whatever H name that you want to apply, insert name here. And we hope that the Hawk was able to recover and at least get to a place where it was able to flap off of the road. But then we were riding and it hit me. And I instantly start talking to my wife because the thought came to me and it was so very clear that so many of us are just like this hawk. If we're being very honest, is that you may find a groove in life and you may be in a space where you are navigating this area of life, this season of life, and you found your glide, you found the flow. And then something shiny or something that's more appealing may catch your attention at a surface that's lower than where you are gliding. And the truth is, so many times people put everything at risk because instead of staying in the glide, instead of staying in the flow, they make the decision to fly a little too low. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is flying too low. What are some parameters, some ideas, some things that stick out to you to may let you know that where you are may not be where you're supposed to be gliding? Because when you're flying too low, you put everything at risk. When you make the decision that I'm going to stop what I'm doing on the level that I'm on, I can't tell you how many times I have seen celebrities, I've seen people in relationships, I've seen business owners, I've seen CEOs put everything at risk and in jeopardy because they made the decision to fly a little too low. They made the decision to come off of their position, to come out of the flow, because you have to intentionally fly low. when you are in the gliding space, when you are in the flow, when you're in the space where you have reached a level of productivity, a level of progress, a level of motion, and you are consistently moving forward, you then have to intentionally make an adjustment to now go beneath where you are to fly a little lower. And my question is where are the areas in your life where you could stop and really assess and say, maybe I'm flying a little too low? Maybe that there's something in me that is calling me higher, but I am making the intentional adjustment to go a little further down than where I'm supposed to be. Now, a lot of times people make these adjustments because, one, they don't necessarily believe in the place that they are supposed to be in. That could be for a multitude of reasons. It could be because the place that you're technically supposed to be was maybe forced upon you. Have you ever been in a situation where an idea of what your life should look like was forced upon you? When people saw something in you, or they saw something that resonated with who you were supposed to be, and then they automatically assign a label to you. You're going to be this. This is who you're supposed to be. It automatically, although they may mean well, it eliminates the freedom of choice. And now, even in the place where you're supposed to be and things that you have a natural inclination towards, you may resist. Why? Because somebody said that you're supposed to fly right here. Somebody assigned your flight pattern. And what do you do when you are in the place that you know internally that this is my specific place of being, but because it was forced upon you, the freedom of the lower level becomes a little bit more appealing? How do you handle those situations where now the things that are beneath you seem to become a little bit more attractive? Because people put everything at risk when we start saying, that's shiny down there. Something down there looks good. There's something that's appealing to me there, and I might want to go and investigate. How many things have we stopped our progress, our motion, because we wanted to investigate what was going on beneath us? Now, I don't know if you're one of these people. When something happens in an environment, say, for instance, if there is a group of people and all of a sudden 2, 3, 4 of them start running in an opposite direction, you are either one of two types of people. One, you will not ask any questions and take off running in whatever direction that they are running in, and will ask questions when you arrive at your destination. Or two, you want to stop and investigate. Hey, what are they running from? What's going on over there? Let me go towards it. Those people in the movies, I'm telling you, it's so predictable, but every time it just burns me up, because you hear a chainsaw, okay? You see people running and screaming, going the opposite direction. And something in your mind tells you, let me go investigate. You know how crazy that looks every single time? But you know, the truth is that that's how crazy we look when we stop what we're doing to go investigate something on a lower level. How many conversations have we stooped down to be a part of? Ooh. How many times have we allowed people into our mental, emotional, spiritual, physical space, gave them access, which then leads to authority, and then allowed them to shape our flight pattern to adjust our altitude? And now when we were flying at a nice, decent altitude, because you know when you're higher up, you can see more. You know when you elevate your perspective, you can see a little clearer. You know when you raise up a certain standard, you have the ability to focus at a higher level. But then we allow people to come in and we start to allow them the access to adjust our flight pattern. It's the same thing as if a person gets into your vehicle on the passenger side Now, if you're this person, I'm talking to you, and we're going to pray that this spirit comes off of you. Person gets in your passenger seat and they reach over and change your radio station. Oh, whoever is driving, this is an unwritten rule, and I think that we should actually put it into law. I'm going to write Congress to see if we can actually get this into law. Is that who's ever driving the car, they get to dictate what's played on the radio. It's an unwritten rule, especially if it's my car. If you get in my car and you are riding as a passenger and you just take it upon yourself to start pushing buttons, first, I'll probably stop and have a moment of silence because I'm giving you an opportunity to realize that the course of action that you are going down may not be most beneficial for a smooth ride going forward, right? Now, I love music. I love all music. Let me think. Is there a genre that I don't like? I am not a very avid heavy metal rock fan, but I am very eclectic when it comes to music, and I love various styles. I love classical music. I love jazz. I love gospel. I love R&B. I love country. I love folk because music is one of those universal languages that you just feel. But it's the same thing as when a person gets in and changes your radio station. For some of us, that may say, hey, whoa, what are you doing? Because you pushing a button is changing the flow of my ride. How much more would we be able to accomplish if we were much more intentional about making sure that when anyone tried to come alongside us in our journey, that we would have a safeguard in place to prevent them from adjusting our altitude? When the conversation seems to drip down a little too low from where your focus is, when the conversation starts to drift off into an area that you are intentionally not operating in, being in a place where there are safeguards to say, hey, wait a minute. I think I'm flying a little too low. I think that my altitude has dropped a little bit. And if I don't stay on the flight path, if I don't stay on my flight path, there could be consequences and repercussions that I will have to face later. You know, I'm always enamored about how pilots fly through the air and they can't see at certain points, which can, I would believe, be a little scary where you're flying and you can't see where you're going, where it's just clouds and you're experiencing turbulence, but you continue to go because you trust the flight path. Because you know that based on my calculations, for me to get to point A, from point A to point B, as long as I stay on this flight path, then I will be able to accomplish what I need to accomplish and make it to my destination. I think sometimes our purpose destinations or our areas of fulfillment, our arrival to those places are delayed because we oftentimes give people too many opportunities to get into the cockpit and begin to adjust all of the levels and change the altitude. You know, I think it's funny that whenever a pilot is in the cockpit, that there is a lock system. The door is built out of some kind of impenetrable metal. Like once that door is locked, you are not getting in the cockpit. Why? Because arriving at the destination is most important. Check this. Because the passengers who are counting on me to make it there safely have put their trust in my ability to navigate this plane. How many people are waiting on you to get to your destination, but the destination is altered because we keep adjusting the altitude and we keep flying a little too low. When you were called to soar up with the eagles, and we keep trying to navigate life down in the area of pigeons. How many times have we stopped and allowed our situations, our fears, our families, our issues, communication, ideas, and thoughts start to adjust our altitude? I can always tell when the faith of someone who believes starts to dwindle because their conversation starts to drift a little too low. You start out and you're believing. If you're feeling sick, if you're facing hardship, you're facing crisis, your faith is strong once you first start off. Once you first start off, it's strong. And you're making all of these faith declarations and you're saying these things and you're believing these things and you continuously are putting things in the atmosphere that continue to reinforce your faith. I believe I'm going to be healed. I believe this is going to turn around. I believe things are going to change. But then as time progresses, you can start to see it drift a little bit and we start flying a little too low. And you can always tell by the verbiage in the conversation. Someone who's believing and they're in faith. Hey man, how's life? What's going on with you? Well, you know what, man? I call them the but statements, where you have your truth, the facts, the reality, but then you add a but, and then you follow up your reality with your faith, with your confession, with your declaration. So it looks like this. If I'm sick, hey man, what's going on? How you doing? How you feeling? Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not feeling the best, but I know I'm on my way to healing. I know things are going to turn around. I know I'm going to step into a place where I'm going to receive everything that God has for me. And this is going to be a part of my testimony. It's going to be a part of the story that I'm going to use to help someone else, because obviously this flight path has been trusted to me, because when I get to my destination, there is going to be so many people that I'm going to be able to help because I've arrived at the place that I was destined to be. That is a faith declaration. That's indicative of me flying at a correct altitude. So when it starts to drift, what happens? Hey man, how you doing? Man, I'm really not feeling that good, man. And you know what? It's been a while. It's been a while, and things it's been hard. And you know, I'm trying to trust, and be real with you. It's just a tough day. Just a tough day. Now, all of it is true. All of it is true. But when we start flying a little too low, the things that we speak starts to shape the world that we are living in. When I'm consistently intentional about my words, I am consistently shaping my atmosphere, which is consistently shaping the world I live in. I'm consistently adjusting my perspective so that I can create an atmosphere that provides a world for me to live in where I know that I'm coming out on top of this, where I know that I'm coming out stronger than I was before. I'm coming out wiser than I was before. I'm coming out with more strength, more tenacity. I am coming out better. But then when I start to drift a little too low, I start to allow the facts and the reality to override my faith. And I can always tell when it starts to drift. And I've been there. Listen to me. There have been times where I'll be very honest. I've been waiting on certain things for decades. Promises and believing that things are going to happen. And here's the thing. They still are going to happen. But time is the space where God allows for development, but it's also the space where the enemy likes to play. When time begins to move and there is day after day and week after week and month after month and year after year, the enemy comes and starts to whisper and say, are you sure it's going to happen? Well, if it's going to happen, wouldn't it have happened by now? Wouldn't you already be in a place where you are experiencing what you have been hoping and believing and working towards? That dream hasn't come to pass. Why are you still trying? Didn't it fail the last time? Because that's one of the things, that's one of the tricks that cause us to try to come down to a lower level, is then now we start to correlate our past failures to our promise and purposeful future. Well, because it didn't work back here, that starts to limit my ability to believe that it's going to work up here. But I have to be intentional about making sure that I'm not putting everything at risk to go down and investigate a thought that's going to lead me to destruction. There are certain things that you just don't need to investigate. Certain feelings you just don't need to dive into. I know we're in the space where we're saying, hey, you need to explore your feelings. You need to lean into them. And I understand it. But certain feelings and thoughts, you need to leave down at that low place and never dive into them. Because you go down and investigate that thought, and what's waiting for you down there is depression. You'll go down and investigate a thought or a feeling, and what's waiting down there is regret. You'll go down and investigate a thought, a feeling, or idea, and what's waiting on you is the cyclical trauma that keeps you in the same place where you're just going around and around and around in circles. Because we want to stop and investigate the stuff that's beneath us. Can I tell you something? It's beneath you. The storm, the chaos, the drama, that is beneath you. You've risen to a greater altitude. And you got one or two options. You can maintain this altitude, or you can do what most pilots do when they hit stormy weather. You can climb higher. When a pilot hits a storm or it's turbulence, you never hear a pilot say, hey, we're going to come down a couple thousand feet to try to find smooth air. What do they say? We're going to rise. We're not going to come up a few thousand feet, because I believe that if I keep going higher in the midst of my test, in the midst of my trial, in the midst of the turbulence, in the midst of the uncomfortability, if I keep rising higher, I'll find smoother air. The easiness and the peace that you're seeking, you will not find going lower. You will not find stooping down to their level. You will not find it trying to go down and justify and validate your experiences every single time. There are certain things you just have to walk away from, believing and knowing that it's better for me to just keep climbing higher. Because peace and smooth air and greater focus and the ability to understand. So many times we want understanding of our situation, of our problems, of what happened and how it happened and where did this start, and all of that's good. But if you're not careful, if you're investigating the understanding, and it starts to bring you down into a space where now you are stuck in a cycle because you dove head first fully into trying to figure out why this happened. Certain things are not going to make sense. Why did they treat you that way? Why did they lie on you? Why didn't that work out? Why did that business fail? Certain things just won't make sense. Certain things you just have to be okay with moving on from. Certain things you're just going to have to be okay saying, you know what? This has been rocky. It's turbulent here. This may not have panned out the way that I desire it to, but I'm going to fly a little higher. I'm going to rise a little higher. Because if I go down and I start flying too low, I risk getting clipped. When I go down and I start responding and connecting and trying to justify myself to people who are beneath me, I risk getting clipped by the same people who are miserable on the level that they are on. It's beneath you. It's beneath you. If you're holding on to a desire for revenge and I just want to get them back, and it's beneath you. If there's an area in your heart, and I've had to work through this, trust me, if there's an area in your heart where you still want some get back and you want to pay them back and you want the big payback and you want some revenge, that's an area where you still need to heal because you're still connected to something that's beneath you. Imagine if a plane tried to take off and there were chains wrapped around the landing gear. Wouldn't get too high. It's beneath you. And I'm not saying that your feelings don't matter. I'm not saying that what you went through doesn't matter. I'm not saying that where you are and the things that you're facing and the turbulent times and how long it's been. I'm not saying that that doesn't matter. What I am saying is that when you have healed completely, you realize from a different perspective that what you wanted down there isn't worth you risking where you are headed. The destination is the goal. Purpose is the goal. You living a life of fulfillment, happiness, and peace is the goal. And I'll take it a step further and let you know that you arriving at the place that you're supposed to be in, it's not 100% about you. It's about the people who will need the answers from your story. It's about the people who are relying on you, who are looking to you for support, who are looking to you for motivation, who are have an identity that's waiting to be unlocked, who have areas of purpose that are chained in the midst of their hurt and their trauma, and they need you to heal so you can show them how to heal. The destination is not just about you in a solo glide. You have to understand that you making it to the place that you're supposed to get to is so important, because when you get there, not only will you see that the journey, that the path that you have had to take was necessary, but when you get there, you'll show other people how you got there so they don't have to waste the same time that you did in getting to where they need to be. It's beneath you. Certain conversations are beneath you. Certain thoughts are beneath you. Certain places are beneath you. Certain relationships are beneath you. You disconnecting and deciding to rise to a higher altitude is not an act of you feeling like you're better than them. It's not arrogance. It's you protecting your flight path. Because if you don't protect your flight path, everything that you are carrying, you put at risk. Everything that's locked on the inside of you that is destined to be a blessing to the world, you put at risk. So my challenge to you today is to be intentional about maintaining your altitude or rising higher. Those are your only two options. Because every time you go low, every time you fly a little too low, you put everything at risk. Well, listen, I hope you got something out of this episode. I need you to understand that in every season of life, regardless as to what you face, regardless as to where you may be, you have everything you need inside of you already to overcome and succeed when life happens.